I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and this is the last Carcassonne Champions League match of the month, as in round 4 in Group C, Bryan Townsend of Chile will be taking on the Japanese master Koki Yamaguchi. Hi P-chan, hi Hugo. It is 1 minute before 2300 UTC. So my European viewers should be tucked in bed. It is early morning in Japan, and I'm pretty sure that Koki Yamaguchi is fresh and ready to fight, and a late evening, mid to late evening in Chile. The tournament situation in Group C is not actually particularly interesting, and I made sure to do my best for it to be the case. So I hope that I should have mathematically guaranteed myself a top spot, given that I won earlier against Easton of Hong Kong a couple of days ago. But when it comes to the second and third spots, which also give a spot in the playoffs, then pretty much everything is up for grabs. And today is a test for the Chilean expert. In order to have chances to qualify for the playoffs, they definitely need to win today against Koki Yamaguchi, which is no easy task. And then afterwards, they would also need to win their final game, which I believe is either against Meister, either against Easton. And that's actually going to be a Meister 35, so that would be trying to play against a neighbor. So anything can happen. So far, due to experience and rating, Koki definitely would be a slight favorite here, maybe 60%, but we have seen plenty of upset here in this tournament. Not a great week for Japanese players, as Rabbit Rain, formerly the highest rated player online, took a hit from the American player with a screen name Crocodile Fundy. But Koki Yamaguchi still rated 650, which is just over 100 rating points above Bryan with a screen name HT Bry. So probably around a 60% favorite. And the first game has started. Bryan here with a starting player advantage, playing with the green meeples, gets himself a shielded tile, and we're going to see a meeple on it in due course. Hi Amiris, hi Milek, hi Glavier, hi Sunny. Hi Napamai. Koki with yellow meeples, starting a new city, leaving the second city cap as obstructed as possible. Pretty easy decision here for Bryan. Can go over here, cover up from any potential invasions from this yellow meeple over here, and create a solid threat of drawing another Dorito and eliminating any kind of invasion platforms whatsoever. And this is the move we indeed see on the board, but a great tile for Koki, manages to prevent a disaster. Surely going to see an invasion on the right, and we do. And now the first real decision for Bryan. He goes for the most standard move, which I think is also best, simply meepling an empty city cap, not allowing Koki to score 4 points. But a 4-point road is probably the move that we're going to see from the play with the Japanese meeples, no, from the play with the yellow meeples, rather, I should say. And this is not obvious necessarily, so I think many players here as yellow would be tempted to just go and start a new city, but leaving such a juicy road up for grabs, at this point you gotta realize that the road is more valuable than the city cap, and just take the road. And he does exactly that, leaving the second city cap as a potential platform to attack Green City. Green now with an interesting decision. So normally, of course, you really want to be meepling those city caps, just munching on them, but it would create some difficulties for this city meeple. So instead, just peacefully, he finishes a city and drops a farmer, because this field will get expanded. It actually has decent potential. But this allows yellow to take advantage of the city cap he left on his previous turn, and also get some points on the scoreboard. Green now starting a new city, also looking to attack the shared city on the right with a triple city plus Dorito combo. Upwards of 18 points could be scored by Green. The added benefit of this move is that it puts additional pressure on this square over here, trying to maybe draw a straight line and block a little bit. This does not happen yet, but an interesting decision for Bryan, and he goes for the city straight away. Doesn't even think about scoring 3 points over here. I do like this move. With the right combination of tiles, this city could get finished really quickly. And what does Koki do here? It's a monastery, of course, which is fantastic, and I see a good spot to it, but it's a very counterintuitive find. So the best move that I see by far is going over here for just 2 points. And he does find it. So the reason why it is so good, well, first of all, it's a monastery, so that's great. But why 2 points instead of 3? Because there was a 3-point spot. Well, this 3-point spot over here, of course, is also great, but there is a chance for somebody or Green to use this platform to attack 2 squares at the same time. We're running a bit short on crossroads with 3 already played, so this road is not entirely safe. And this monastery puts pressure on this square, of course, and now we see how Koki successfully equalizes the city before, right one tile before the disaster struck. But there is one more sneaky idea behind this monastery, which is not obvious at all, and this is the protection of this square. Now, if Bryan wants to go and start blocking this meeple, he will be forced to go over here, adding a point to Yellow's monastery. So this might serve a deterrent, or at the very least, he will be getting compensation from Green's potential blocking efforts here. Hi Helge, hi Temrak. Helge is saying, is meepling the road on the CCCR as green extra? Oh, that's actually a lovely idea. I do like meepling the road here. I did not expect Bryan to do that. It's not really his style. He seems to be quite balanced in meeple placement, but I very often meeple these 1-point roads for a variety of reasons. So the main reason, of course, is that my opponent is now not able to score 2 points whilst creating 2 attacking platforms. And even though this meeple is precariously placed, if I do finish the city successfully, then it's okay to have that meeple blocked, because the city scored so much that having your meeple blocked is an absolutely fair price to pay. And if we do meeple this 1-point road over here, there are some ways how we can use this for indirect defense productively. So imagine if Yellow goes over here with the Dorito tile or something like this, then suddenly we can draw a road tile, prolong our road, and restrict the square. So plenty of ideas. In the meantime, Bryan, I think, overreacting with the city a little bit, trying to invade at the top. But the problem with all this idea that he has is that he will be forced to build up Yellow's monastery in the process. In addition to that, the city requires so many squares to be filled in order to ensure its completion that Koki will have plenty of times to block the city or equalize. His monastery gets built up in the process. He's already 6 points on the scoreboard, and there are many scenarios which are good for the Japanese player here. For example, one scenario is where the city gets blocked. Maybe on, I'm not sure which square, maybe this one. Or maybe this one at the top. For like 15 points, Green completes his monastery, although actually Yellow does not complete his monastery very often. But let's say if he does complete his monastery, then he gets even 9 extra on the scoreboard, and he's doing very well. Bryan, with a horse tile. Not an easy decision at all. He might want to go over here or over here, so he started this idea, but then I guess he has to just go with it. And he indeed is just planning to finish the big city. This is what it is. He chose to fill this square before this square for a variety of reasons. So first of all, this is a move that gives him the most immediate points at the moment. And second, now that this square is filled, there's no idea from yellow to go over here and start putting pressure on both of these squares simultaneously. So yellow, of course, will want to either defend or block, but he will need to separately create a platform to attack this square and separately create a platform to attack this square. In the meantime, Koki just gets himself a meeple back. By the way, following back to the earlier comment, so I do like meeple in the 1-point road here, so that's a very nice fight from Helge in the chat. But the question that I wonder, is not meepling this road a mistake even? And I want to say no, because it does appear to be extra, but given the choice, this is one of the cases where I do in fact prefer meepling the 1-point road. I know that Nalaheim would disagree with me here. And I've had various results. Sometimes this 1-point road really helped me complete the city, denying opponent blocking opportunities. There were some cases where I just got all my meeples stuck. But the latter scenario does not appear to happen as often as the former. Well, anyway, the game has proceeded since then. Koki with a Dorito tile. A variety of interesting ideas available. So he could just do a normal move going over here, preparing to finish a city. That actually would be really strong because he would be preparing to get a city cap, drop a 9-point farmer, and create an attacking platform against this square. So that would certainly be a possibility. The downside of this move is that it would actually decrease the safety of this city. There is only one dagger tile remaining, and I'm sure that Bryan now is going to go over here, try to create an attacking platform, or really a blocking platform against this square. There's still many road tiles in the deck, and if, let's say, if Koki draws a straight line, which he very fortunately doesn't, we're now going to see a farmer as well. So he does not get a straight line or anything. But if yellow were not to draw it, then he would be in quite some trouble. Bryan decides to cover up this square, still leaving a decent chance of the city being completed. Yeah, so if the Japanese player is not careful, then this idea of green just completing a city with a bunch of cows and Doritos will work, and green will get like 36 points or something. Also, this move over here is a little bit dubious. I would have definitely preferred a meeple on the city cap. Even though it is the last meeple of Bryan, he would need to realize that he actually does not need a meeple for anything in this position. So he gets to use road tiles over here. He can easily recover a meeple from this road. He gets to use city caps here to recover a meeple from his city. Of course, the big tiles go over here, over here. As for monasteries, there aren't any good monastery spots in this position anyway, so probably he would just use monasteries for board shaping or blocking. In the meantime, yellow scores 2 points. Bryan with a cow tile and an interesting choice. So do we go... Okay, so it's not this interesting a choice, apparently. I'm not a fan of this move necessarily. So the reason I don't like this move is that it, in the short term, it loses a boatload of points. So now this part of the city is equalized, and there's no guarantee that the meeple at the top is going to join. So what I would have preferred is just leaving the square empty and then going over here for starters, trying to cover up that city and still having a decent 75% chance of finishing the city afterwards, because with 2 cows remaining, it's a 75% chance. Well, it turns out that it's going to be a wash. Bryan is going to do something similar. He's going to cover up over here at the top first. But you tell me which position it is to be better in. With the cow tile over here, which he would have after this move, and then a completely closed city where you already have a majority of about 16 points, and then a chance to complete the city with a 75% probability. Or this here square, which will be attacked and it will be subject to a block. So imagine if yellow goes over here, which at some point they will. Oh, look at this. Well, it ends up not mattering as he just draws a sequence of cows anyway. So with this draw, of course, regardless of how in which order he places the tiles, the city would have been completed. And 36 points is the value of the completed cities. Oh, look at this. My estimate was correct. So Bryan could have built it up a little bit safer, but it ends up not maturing. Could be a game-decisive feature here. Koki now does not get a particularly good tile draw. I mean, he could score a little bit, but you really don't want to go over here and score the 4 points because you will be obstructing your city a lot. So probably where you do want to go is you want to go here and score 3 points, but it's not exactly clear how. There's a bit of a weird move that I start liking more and more. How about we go over here and we point the city cap down? So we would be leaving a 6-point city potentially up for grabs, but we're running so short on Doritos. In fact, there are only 2 Doritos remaining that maybe leaving such a city was not be a big deal. So the intuitive move here is to go here and score 3 points, which is what he does. But then there are actually more tiles that fit into this square that way for potential obstruction. So what could happen here? Imagine if Bryan draws something like a starting tile. Then he could go over here, score 4 points, and obstruct this square. The advantage of this move, though, is that it does not expose a 6-point field up for grabs. So this field over here is now closed, and chances are it is Koki who's going to take advantage of it. So here's a potential sequence that I see. Let's say Koki gets a vanilla on his next turn and he goes over here. He could drop a farmer. And then after that, he can get himself a dagger, score 4 points for the city, and suddenly he could have a 12-point farm on the other side. And this would be a great way to come back into this game. Another is, of course, stacking monastery, so he has 2, and he's clearly setting up either a road monastery or maybe a curve with a farmer. So really trying to score as much as possible. Yeah, this is not such a big advantage for the Chilean player. It's decent, and Bryan is trying to take a stronghold on the field to further his advantage. But this is one of those positions where skill can really matter a lot, just because there's this big city here in the center. It allows for some interesting field geometry. So one of the sides, and probably is going to be the side who's behind, probably is going to be Koki there, can really take advantage of that field geometry in order to score multiple times for the same city. So for example, this 12-point field idea on the right is something that I really, really look forward to seeing. But even without the fields, if yellow just completes the monasteries quickly enough, it's 18 to his scoreboard, it's getting close, plus this city he could already be overtaking. Hi Vladimir, hi Blackhawk. Bryan is trying to anticipate that big field just in time as Koki, of course, will be completing his city. He's just pondering whether it is worth meepling the city cap. And the answer appears to be yes in this situation. The reason why I really like meepling the city cap is not just for the idea, the usual stuff, we get to finish the city, drop a farmer, but also because a city meeple here would very nicely control this farmer. Let me explain you what I mean. So the reason why Yellow did not place a farmer over here, he was afraid of a block. The kind of a block that he was afraid was maybe Green going over here, something with a road, something like a road Dorito, and then trying to tie his meeple to this blocked square. But he should not have been afraid of this. First of all, there's still one splitter to bail out and drop a farmer potentially. Second, there are not many blocking tiles in the first place, so this road Dorito, there's only 2 of those in the deck, and there's still a bunch of city caps to try and threaten a city here. Third, if Yellow were to get blocked here, that actually would be a good thing, because this would also block off this farmer for 3 points. Yellow would have a chance to build up a ruin which would outscore this farmer, and even though this farmer is aiming to invade the lucrative 15-point field of Yellow in the center, it is easier said than done. We are running short on crossroad tiles. In fact, there are only 2 crossroad tiles remaining in the entire deck, and it's not really that hard to try and go here, and block this square completely. Now, the issue with leaving the city cap empty is in fact that this guy doesn't even have to invade the main field. All he has to do is either get the dagger, in which case his field would instantly grow to 12 points, or he can just get like a normal city cap tile plus a curve and then develop his field to 9 points that way. Bryan, 17 points extra on the scoreboard. Koki is trying to be really creative and efficient with tiles, so he's now choosing to fight a lot for the field on the left-hand side. Also building up his monasteries in the process. And he will be getting 2 of those meeples back. Even though Bryan has the meeple majority temporarily, and he has this guy over here, unless Bryan now finds the best move, which I believe is a farmer over here, hoping for one of the 4 remaining curves to go over here and get himself a majority on the field, also potentially pre-building this nice snake-like road, which could benefit either of the sides, but is more likely to benefit Bryan because he has more meeples. So unless Bryan finds this invasion, which he does, I would have preferred Yellow in this position, but he found the invasion, so now I do prefer Green. Koki, with the city cap tile, has a dilemma. Does he go over here, score 4 points, which is net 1 point because it is in what's currently Bryan's field? This would also help Green build up a little bit. It would also kill off many blocking tiles that Yellow has for this square. So one thing that I'm seeing is that there's still 4 straight lines in the deck. Yellow really doesn't have a good use for straight lines, other than maybe harassing the city at the bottom, which is not that lucrative. So Yellow, of course, would be wanting to go with a straight line over here, kind of obstructing this city cap, obstructing and permanently blocking this city cap, not allowing that dagger idea, which of course is still possible with 2 right-handed daggers still remaining in the deck. But what are some alternatives? So he could go over here, I guess, build up his monastery, trying to get a meeple back. But then with 3 monasteries still remaining in the deck, it looks like such a good spot for another monastery. So I wonder if the move is just to go here. Allow the square to potentially be blocked, but it's actually not that easy, and we're going to talk about this in a second. But if we do go over here, then we're threatening to take a 7-point monastery and instantly get a meeple back. Bryan with a straight line, who, by the way, could not have blocked that monastery spot, and this is precisely the reason why I really like this move. There are few blocking tiles that could restrict the square. And also, for example, imagine that if yellow does draw a monastery, then they will place it here anyway, and they will get the last meeple, and all will be well. But you really want to be keeping a meeple for a particular feature on the board, this road over here. If yellow gets a curve, he needs to go over here and meeple this road. The reason for this is because he wants to make sure that Bryan cannot invade the main field without helping this guy a little bit. Okay, so Koki gets the city cap after all. Now he has a chance to do the same idea. But now that we're running shorter on city caps, this idea is not as powerful anymore. So had he gone over here on the previous turn, he could have scored 4 points over here in his field, whilst also pre-protecting his future monastery a little bit. Now, if he goes over here, then with something like a road Dorito tile, this square could be restricted towards the last remaining vanilla tile, and this monastery idea will no longer be powerful. So maybe on his previous move, even though it was a completely normal move, the Japanese master might have underestimated the difficulty of his position. So what can Koki do? Yeah, this move makes sense, and it's okay, but it kills off a monastery spot, and that's the issue. Still 3 monastery in the deck, and just watch him draw a monastery on the next turn. Bryan with a city cap will now be happy to complete a city at the bottom. And Koki doesn't have this many tiles that fit into this square. But what is he gonna do? So obviously he's not gonna go over here. He's not gonna help this guy invade. I wonder if he's gonna want to go over here and block up this guy a little bit. There's really not that much point in doing that because this square is unblockable. So maybe just scoring here could be the move. You get 2 points, you set up a straight line with which somebody can score points next turn, and this is exactly what he does. He's a bit behind, so it's okay to create this variance. It's okay to create a scoring spot. Bryan now thinking of connecting all the fields. This certainly would be the move that jumps out to me. It is not the only possible move. Yeah, this one's really nice, and he's going to meeple that road. That's actually really lovely. So now if Koki wants to finish his monasteries, which he will eventually, he will be forced to prolong and ultimately complete Bryan's road. Also note that this move kind of eliminates some field connection opportunities. It was possible for Koki to drop a farmer here, connect to the farm like this. Then the bottom farm is actually pretty good in its own right. It has already 9 points. It's probably going to have more. There's a 6-point farm that neighbors it. Green could even drop a farmer over here and then try to get another curve and equalize against this guy or even overrun against this guy. It's something that he really, really should be thinking about, and Koki really would want to draw something like this and block that opportunity because he is down on meeple so much. I actually wonder if this was one of the possibilities with that vanilla tile, just to block that idea. Because with a sufficient number of curves, if Bryan gets a meeple here, then he's going to get such a super majority on the field that it will be very difficult to fight against. And also, now that yellow has this 15-pointer in the middle, yellow would really like to separate all the fields, and there is only one crossroads remaining for this square. So he can either draw it or just block it completely. Bryan with the Dorito still cannot get himself a blocking tile, and there are not many of those remaining in the deck, and he needs a city tile here anyway. What does Bryan do here with this Dorito? Probably some sort of waiting move is in order. He could actually just go over here, maybe pre-build a scoring move. He could pre-build a road for 4 points, which would also prolong his field. This would also make sure that... Actually, no, I don't think that would be such a good move, because Bryan, of course, wants to still get that dagger. That would get his field to 15 points. Instead, he just opens up his field a little bit, which could benefit either side, and now Koki with a difficult decision. He decides to finish the monastery, which is also what I would do. It exposes a field attacking platform at the top. It still does not take care of this square, but it gives him a much needed meeple back, and I guarantee you the next move we're going to see from Koki is going to be a farmer. Bryan with a curve, only 2 curves remaining. He has so many options with that move. Option 1, we go over here, pre-finish our road, which actually does appear to be somewhat important, and we take at least a temporary majority on the main field. Option 2, we go over here for 6 points, and then we try to draw now one of the 2 remaining curves to go on this square, and try to get a majority against this guy in the center. The downside is that the top field will still be shared. Koki could get a curve and finish his monasteries without finishing our road, and then just abuse us with his newly gained meeple majority from those bottom squares. Option 3, we go over here, but we have a different orientation. We just bet the game on the road monastery and hope to go over here, get 8 points for the monastery, and overrun the field. He instead tries to gamble a little bit and go for a lot of curves. And it's certainly an interesting idea, but I probably would have preferred just uniting the fields first and then dropping the farmer. The idea being that, let's say if my opponent uses the square himself, it's no such a big deal, because then we can still invade here or here or here. So it's a relatively open field. And now Koki with a curve can definitely go over here much safer and get a much needed meeple. The advantage of this move, of course, it gains 6 immediate points. It creates a huge 75% threat. Yeah, Bryan has just so many threats. He can draw a crossroads here. He can draw a dagger here. But Koki has the meeples, and maybe he can put them to good use. So I wonder if it's crazy to go over here and drop a farmer, or maybe not. Maybe we just score for now and try to look for better spots for farmers a bit later. Also know that with the road monastery, green can still take over the field at the top by simply going over here and connecting that way. Koki with only 30 seconds remaining on his clock. This, of course, will be replenished by 45 seconds after his move, as long as he does not forget that it is his turn. There's also another interesting move. Why don't we just score more aggressively and go over here? Yeah, and Koki goes for the farmer. His aim is to get a straight line here and a curve here. But it could be problematic because he will be getting the majority at the top, but that field scores only 12 points. The field at the bottom scores much more. And now that Bryan has successfully developed his field on the right by drawing the dagger, and the field on the right is 15 points, it is actually now not in Bryan's interest to place a crossroads here. So what Bryan wants to do, he just wants to get a curve, get the majority on this 21-point field, then keep that square empty, and then have himself this 15-point field separately. If the Chilean expert gets himself exactly the tile that he wants, then we could see a record score for farmers. 9 tiles remaining in the deck. A variety of interesting scoring moves available. He just goes for the normal 2-pointer. It was also an option to meeple this long road straight up. Koki with a crossroads. Very, very not obvious what he does. He might actually want to go over here. Maybe meepling the long road, maybe just taking the 2 points and leaving the long road up for grabs. And the idea behind this move is that we could actually try and anticipate our opponent's take over the field. And then, at the very least, this move would make sure that they don't score twice for all these 4 cities. So let's say if we just give them the field, they're going to score 24 points. We have a 12-point field at the top, plus the 2 monasteries for 18, that's 30. I mean, we're still behind after this, but if we get 2 meeples back in time, then we're doing just fine. Instead, Koki takes just 3 points. I'm not a fan of this idea. It basically leaves this field alone, so maybe he has a master plan of reinvading that field. But how does he do that? Maybe he goes here and draws one of the curves. So Bryan gets a majority on this field, and Koki reinvades over here. But then this still appears to be just the waste of a meeple. So if you just go over here from yellow's perspective, you make Bryan's field just 3 points bigger, but you preserve yourself a meeple for something else. And of course, we could have meepled the long road ourselves. Maybe that would have been more precise. What else can he do? I just want to double check if there's a dagger that fits in this square, and there is. Yeah, so Bryan's field will grow even more. And there's no way to take advantage of that square in a way that could help us invade the field from the Japanese player's perspective. Yeah, so these 3 points, really not the brightest 3 points in my view. Yeah, Bryan now has a move that gives him 7 more. And it is unpreventable. And I'm now double checking whether I miscounted the daggers, but no, I didn't. There's a dagger that fits here. Koki with a straight line. A very interesting move from Bryan here. Simply decides to connect the farmers. Koki now goes for the field on the right. Bryan will now, of course, connect the field on the left, get himself not 21, but 18 points. Oh, no. Yeah, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 24 points. Ay, ay, ay. Ouchie, ouchie. Koki with the monastery, and he will be losing this game. I just can't see how he could do anything about those fields. Yeah, now we see indeed that his plan was to invade, but again, that idea is spending an entire meeple for 3 points. That's what it is. If you were just to go here, then Bryan would have had a super majority on this field over here, which is really not that big of a deal. So what is his idea then? Okay, there's another plan actually for Koki. It wins him the game 16% of the time. He can go here to equalize the field on the left, but he won't because he didn't do the tile. And then he can draw the curve to unify the fields there. And then this would be a complete equality. 4 green meeples and 4 yellow meeples. So maybe that was his plan, but it was predicated on drawing 2 unique tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I'm not mistaken, the 2 remaining tiles should in fact be the dagger and the curve. The regular curve, that is. Bryan is trying to figure that out. I don't think he can make a move that can influence the game result. Well, if he goes over here, he restricts the square towards a 50-50. Because Koki can get the dagger anywhere and go over here. And he goes here now. Bryan now with a curve is going to pick up this long road. Yummy, yummy. Actually, it was probably more precise for Bryan to go over here after all, so that if Koki were to connect to this field, then it will be guaranteed that Bryan will have the curve in hand, and then Bryan will be taking this road for sure. And then if Koki were to have the curve, then this means that Koki would not be invading this field. Koki, of course, could go here for way, way fewer points, for just 10 points net. And then with the dagger tile, we could go here as green. So, not the easiest find. Bryan had options for maybe more endgame precision, but he had a 100% winning chance no matter what. 120 versus 106, a 14-point win, and a really difficult position there for the Japanese player. Maybe missing some chances. He did end up equalizing the farm on the right, again netting just 3 extra points comparison to the alternative. Just going for a more low probability winning idea, it seems. But yeah, Bryan with an excellent find. Some strategically placed farmers, especially this one over here. And by the way, this is also what you're gonna do if your opponent draws a lot of monasteries. So Koki here with 3 monasteries was really threatening to come back into this game. But this gave green a temporary meeple majority, and a temporary meeple majority was used to occupy really good farming points. So very well played game here for Bryan. This risky city initially did pay off, and then just holding on to his lead by clinching the farms. So let's see if Koki can avoid himself another 2-0 loss. He is the starting player in the second game, and the statistical advantage from that should help. Start a new city. But Bryan will be the first on the scoreboard. It's not the most obvious tile that he can use. I guess just going over here, meepling a city cap and leaving a 3-point road up for grabs is the way to go. It's also possible to go over here, actually meepling a city that way, and then pre-building your road until finish. Instead, he takes 2 points, which is not such a strong move. I think he's overly concerned about not leaving stuff on the board. Yeah, so he does take 2 points only. So he sacrifices points. Like, no, it doesn't make sense. He sacrifices points in order to not give points back to his opponent. Like, if you go over here, then the immediate point move that you make, the immediate value of the move is 1 for the road, or probably a little bit more because you're getting a meeple back, and then 2 for the city cap, so that's 3 points. Now he took 2 instead. Then he would have picked up this road himself. Yeah, this actually is an instructive moment, because normally, of course, you want to avoid giving back easy points to your opponent, but you don't do that at the expense of your points. And also what we need to realize is that if you leave a city cap open, the expected value that you're giving back is not 4 points, it's a bit less than that. It's actually something like 1.6 points. So first of all, in order to take advantage of an empty city cap, your opponent needs to have a city cap at himself. So then the really free points that he's making is not 4 points. It's just 2 points from the city cap are lying around, so 2 points from here, and 2 points come from the city cap which was in the opponent's hand anyway, which the opponents could have used elsewhere for the same 2 points. So first of all, you're losing only 2 points actually for leaving a city cap open. Second, around 40% of the time, you get to benefit from that city cap before your opponent. So you're only giving away like what? So 2 times 0.6, around 1.4 points. And in that case, it made all the sense in the world. You would score 1 more for your road, you would have a city placed in a good position. I'm not sure if y'all could follow the math here. Hopefully some of y'all could, but this is one of those moments where the math sometimes gets a little bit counterintuitive. In any case, the Chilean player is doing pretty well. They did manage to score for the city cap eventually, and now they finished themselves a long road, of course giving back a decent-sized road to his opponents. Koki is now finally going to take care of this city cap. Way too chickeny a move, if you ask me. Way too chickeny. Why not just take this healthy-looking city cap? Which also is setting up even more points over here, which you could have taken. So I'm a bit surprised. But still, that's okay. Koki now with a powerful blocking move, it's really difficult to do something against it, and Bryan doesn't even bother. Koki now fully blocks the square, but Bryan now is putting pressure on both of these yellow meeples, now probably thinking of going here perhaps, and trying to block this guy. It would have the downside of exposing some squares over here, but instead he chooses to start blocking the city on the right, precisely because he did not want to expose his city here. But Koki with a fantastic tile gets to prolong his city by an expected value of almost 4 points. Maybe like 3.8 or something, or 3.6 at the very least. And then he gets to set up a very safe city completion. A monastery for the Japanese player. 2 decent spots jump out to me. So there's this one, the more classic one. 5 points, controlling the only road end. Well, at least the longest unoccupied road end on the board. There's one slight issue, is that this blocked meeple of Bryan, which can still grow, can actually end up controlling this monastery. Like, for example, if green draws something like a big tile, he gets to go over here. And now suddenly it's his yellow who must go over here and continue green city if he wants to keep his monastery meeple alive. And sometimes green gets to go here, continue his ruin, and even do something like this and block the square completely. Koki gets to complete his city, now takes the lead on the scoreboard, takes the lead on meeples as well. Bryan with a road monastery, probably looking to take one of the amazing spots available on the board. I'm not sure where to even start. Look at this. 5 points over here, pre-building a 4-point road which goes through his city, and then supporting his city meeple over here. All of that could backfire in a couple of scenarios, such as maybe right now. Koki now thinking whether to just peacefully continue his city or instead go over here and equalize Bryan's meeple whilst also delaying the construction of his monasteries. He chose not what I would have chosen. Let's say that. But so far he's doing pretty okay because he dropped the first farmer and now is putting a lot of pressure on these here meeples. And Bryan now achieving the kind of stuff that I was talking about, although not sure. I don't like this move actually at all from the Chilean player. It is helping the monastery a little bit too much. So yes, it of course is indirectly continuing the ruin. And now yellow will either need to go over here and add a city point to Bryan, or he might even need to go over here with the meeple, equalizing Bryan's ruin, essentially unblocking the blocked meeple. But a move over here for 4 more immediate points, a shield on a completable city, seemed stronger to me. This would have forced yellow to attack this city a little bit more, and this would give us more time from green's perspective to calmly develop and recover this city meeple. So this is an okay move. This was just a bit stronger. And by a bit, I mean a lot. Also note that this is the last horse tile. So these 2 meeples are actually much, much more precariously placed than you might think. For example, do you see what now happened? This guy is about to get blocked. So it is not unreasonable for Bryan to actually go over here and save himself towards the 1 remaining starting tile, and he doesn't do it. And I agree with him. I think he needs to gamble a little bit and try to wait for a city plus road tile as it is, and now developed his ruin at the top, nicely controlling these 2 monasteries. The next order of business is probably to place a straight line and try blocking the square. Koki with a scoring move. Lots of city plus road tiles have gone out. It's going to be an incredibly blocky game. I wonder if Bryan is just going to go here and try and block this guy. He shouldn't, but he could. What on earth do you do with this splitter tile? There are just no good moves available. I think I see something. I do like going over here and putting pressure on this city and this road, perhaps. And then, if Koki does go over here and we do end up losing those 2 meeples, then very often we get to go here. Well, this was not a good move. This was not a good move at all. This was maybe a lack of experience. Like, these positions are very, very difficult to play. There's a type of position where you're just blocking each other. And this appears to be the case. And typically what happens is either you both save meeples or you both block meeples. And it's really the same thing. But what you should realize in playing these positions, you should just identify which meeples are the critical ones. And this meeple was very, very unsafe. So this was really our last chance to get compensation for these 2 blocked meeples, is to try to do something against this. With so many city plus road tiles gone out, even this one curved really damages this guy, and all Bryan did was equalize it. So now Koki will never ever need to worry about the safety of this meeple again. And there are only 3 tiles that fit over here anyway, so I'm gonna even take this further. Even this move, as misguided as it is, would have been better without a meeple. Of course, that would have been madness, but that still would have been better than equalizing this city. And also the move of just going over here and drawing a splitter is counterintuitive in many ways. Maybe he didn't see that this road over here is also potentially blockable. With many daggers gone out, with daggers needed in 2 places, and with 3 of these guys gone out, this road could have endured a lot of pressure. So for example, Bryan could have just gone here and blocked this road toward the 50-50. Next order of business, block the city. Bryan has 2 meeples, Koki has 2 meeples, everybody's happy. Now the saving grace for Bryan's position is these 2 semi-blocked monasteries. There is only 1 dagger available to fit into that square. And green can either hope to simply draw that dagger or do a sequence of 2 moves by going over here and over here, getting himself 2 extra city points and blocking that square completely. And I'm pretty sure that he's going to try and accomplish that at some point, and he's so likely to be successful. In the meantime, Koki is 10 points ahead on the scoreboard. By finishing a 6-point road a couple of moves earlier, he managed to expand his field significantly. He's now making a move which is not really strong, but he has to make a move. It's not easy to find a move in this position in the first place, but there was a stronger move. So he's of course now trying to fully block this square, which is not really that important. This block will only give Koki 3 extra points for the price of 2 tiles. So at the moment, yellow's side of the city is worth 5 points, and green's side of the city is worth 1 point. Okay, I guess it's a 4-point difference instead of a 3-point difference. But as Koki, a move that I really liked was going here, pre-building a 4-point road, because you know that your opponent is not going to take those 4 points. Instead, they've started a blocking attack against these road meeples, so well done, Bryan, for correctly identifying the danger of what normally would have been a safe road, but on this board it's very much unsafe. Only 1 tile that fits into this square. Had Koki gone over here, he would have already been scoring this 4-point road whilst also expanding his field and building up his monastery and all that good stuff. But now, instead, he just forced to make a, I'm not sure even what, perhaps a defensive move over here? Still preserving that 50-50 chance of recovering a meeple, that sounds nice. Going over here is still not the worst idea, but then now that your opponent has only 1 meeple available, yeah, exactly, you actually don't want to be creating that 4-point road. Koki with a straight line, probably looking to pre-finish his monastery. Not that his meeple back is coming into his hand anytime soon. Let me just update the scoreboard to reflect that Bryan is in fact ahead. Chile is doing very well this week. So we now saw how Bryan successfully has blocked the square. This ruin has already exceeded the size of 1 monastery. It is worth a juicy 10 points, and it has the potential of being worth more. This meeple is still somehow not blocked. It's hanging by a thread for sure. And Koki just cannot get a blocking tile. Oh, how happy the Chilean fans are going to be when this meeple somehow, against all odds, survives. I have a feeling he's getting his meeple back. Because the more time this meeple spends being not blocked, the more likely with every each turn he's to draw one of the recovery tiles. So what is there? There's a starting tile, there are 2 daggers, and there is one of these guys. No, you just didn't. So Koki somehow, with some sick spidey sense, knew that Bryan had the recovery tile in hand, and he chose to go here and equalize this meeple, simply not allowing Bryan to score these extra points. Now, Bryan is going to score 3 points and be happy with this. But another thing that this move sets up is a joint city. And the joint city would benefit yellow because yellow is the one who owns and controls this field. So, confess in the chat, like, who of you saw this move coming? I for sure didn't. Bryan now making a very interesting move, sacrificing 3 points in order to have the chance of sharing the city. He then sacrifices 6 further points because Koki gets this lovely city tile. A very unusual game. It just seems like such a waste of a tile. Why not just score 3 points? Like, you have only 1 meeple. You know you can't score. This is also one other thing. I don't think that Bryan seems to realize the point value of his moves. So he's sacrificing 3 points. He knows that. First of all, he sacrifices 3 points for the 75% chance with 2 Doritos remaining of gaining 4. Now, 4 times 75% chance, it is also 3, but with a variance, of course. So it's a complete wash in the long run. But the downside of this move, it gives Koki a chance to score 6 points for a city, which is exactly what happened. And also, it saves not 4 points, but just 2 points. Because imagine if this square were to get blocked. Then Bryan, with a Dorito with the road, would have plenty of other productive moves. For example, going over hill, building up his ruin. So when you sacrifice points in order to save some sort of connection, or a farmer, or whatever, then the value of your move is not how many points you would be making with that tile, but how many points you would be making more with that tile than in another place on the board, rather than the second best place on the board for that tile. Yeah, this is what many players don't realize. For example, you know the standard situation where you have a crossroads and you can score 2 points. So finally we see this square blocked, which definitely benefits green. So imagine the standard situation where you get a crossroads and you have a choice between scoring 2 points and dropping a 9-point farmer. And depending on what the situation is, either the 2 points are correct or the farmer is correct. There's really a lot of subtleties there. But if you want to count the value of your farmer, if you do drop it, then it's not 9 points, it's 7 points. It's 7 points for a meeple. Because you're scoring 7 points more than you would have with that tile, and you're spending a meeple. So you need to assess in this position, is a meeple more valuable than 7 points or not? In some cases the answer is yes, and in some cases the answer is no. So Koki has developed quite an advantage on the scoreboard as a result of some quick points. He now also successfully blocked or restricted, let me count this, I think it's a complete blocked. Very nice move here from Koki. Bryan was threatening the completion and ultimate recovery of his monastery. And this move over here appears to have quashed that idea. No Dorito tile remaining, no splitter remaining. How are we doing for vanilla city caps? And all 5 vanilla city caps on the board. So very nice recognition from the Japanese player. This meeple is just as trapped as all of these other guys. Yeah, that's actually a fun position. So 10 blocked meeples is what we have. These 2 guys are technically still alive, and I assume that Bryan is going to finally score his 3 points at some point. This will have the added benefits of tempo. He's going to probably drop a 6-point farmer over here. But what does he do with this monastery? Now, this main field over here certainly should be a concern for all of our Chilean fans. By the way, if you are here, do make yourself known. Bryan for sure is in a situation where he would need the support of his countrymen, either emotional or more practical perhaps. Somebody should certainly come running with a box full of meeples. He could use an extra meeple for sure. Maybe Koki doesn't notice. And of course, if you're rooting for Japan, do make yourselves known as well. And if anything, if I'm completely honest, I'm rooting for Japan a little bit in this particular game. And we can see that Bryan decides that 12 points is too much to ignore and he wants to attack this farm. So his plan is pretty simple. He wants to connect to the field, then complete the shared city, get a meeple back, then maybe get himself a crossroads, score 5 points for a road, and then drop a 6-point farmer. Or maybe even deploy one more farmer and overrun the main field for 12 points. So this is how Green's daydreaming would look like. Koki with a dagger now has free reign to set up some sort of quick point opportunities for himself. He could also try dropping a counter farmer or blocking, but since he's ahead on the scoreboard, I don't think that even Bryan successfully connecting to the field is that damaging. So what are we having? We're having ourselves 2 monasteries which equal each other. 2 pairs of monasteries rather. We're having 1 big ruin, which is not even enough to compensate the scoreboard. Koki gets his road meeple back, and Bryan finally completes the Dorito, for which he was fighting the entire game. Probably the most hard-fought 4 points in existence. Koki now is going to rub some salt into the Chileans' wounds by maybe going over here and blocking the field's connection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But it is not necessary because, in fact, there are no tiles to make that connection work in the first place. Wait! Did the Chilean drop a farmer here when there were no curves available? It does appear to be the case. Yeah, so this farmer was dead to begin with, so also a miscount to wrap things up. But it won't be damaging that much because the game was difficult for the Chilean to begin with. It's just a very, very different type it's just a very different type of position compared to the previous game. So we can now see where the players' true strengths and weaknesses are. Just look at how well Bryan played the first game with the open position with lots of farms. and how much he struggled in this position with lots of blocked meeples, where you need to prioritize really which meeples to block, which meeples to save, and some crucial misjudgments prevented him from equalizing what was a playable position at the time. So I wonder if this game will influence the player's choice of move in the decider, which we're about to witness. So probably if I'm Bryan, I'm trying to force my style on my opponent and try to keep the position as open as possible. And if I'm Koki, probably I want to repeat something like this. So lots of mini battles, lots of these city plus road restrictions if possible. The final score is 1-0-0 to 7-3, so 27-point difference. Koki did pick up a few points from fields towards the end. And time to see the decider. The game has been created, but the players are taking a teeny tiny break, which gives me enough time to update the scoreboard. That's final game, hugely important for both players. Playoff chances. Hi Sergio, rooting for Chile. Something that Bryan really needs at the moment, because if he loses his game, he's basically out of contention. One would need 2 games and a good tiebreaker in order to qualify. So has the game started? No, it has not. Both players have joined. It should be starting in a second. Bryan, with green meeples and a starting player advantage, starts by taking out the first city cap for 4 points. A measly road tile for Koki, but it allows him to score 2 and now 3 points for the road. Bryan is forced to help yellow a little bit, but he gets to start a new shielded city in the process. Koki with a monastery tile, and not such an obvious decision, because my first instinct tells me to go over here. It looks like a lovely move for 4 points, and it supports his road, it controls his opponent's city, but it has one sneaky issue. Imagine if green were to draw something like this, or whatever, if just green draws another monastery or just passes his turn, then Koki gets something like the umbrella tile. Or even there's a crazier sequence. So Bryan gets himself a regular vanilla city cap, and then Koki gets himself something like this, the umbrella tile. And then yellow is forced to place this tile in the only legal possible square, finishing a city for green. It does not happen very often, but this pattern had occurred in competitive play, even at the highest level. So a relatively recent example was the first playoff round of the 2023 World Team Carcassonne Online Championship between Normund Strautinch and Erik Mateus of Latvia and Brazil, respectively. And actually this sort of forced umbrella pattern is what ended up deciding the game. the side who was forced to complete their opponent's city for 10 points just ended up a little bit behind the entire game all the time on the scoreboard, and the other side had no problem exploiting it. But none of that will happen. There are plenty of squares now, city squares, road squares, field squares on this board. Koki is building up his monastery. Bryan is trying to finish himself a good city. Not obvious what to do here. My first instinct tells me to act like Bryan, but it gives Koki a chance to try and block the square, which he probably should do. Now, I really, as a player who prioritizes scoring, want to go over here, add 2 points, one for the road, one for the monastery, and set up another monastery over here. But if you go over here, you have like about a 30% chance of just winning the game on the spot. Or like this. Bryan, of course, is super, super happy about the chosen orientation of Koki's tile. He gets himself a monastery which saved the square. There are still 5 tiles available that go here. This monastery gets 4 points. It covers up this square. It controls yellow city cap. So it's a great, great position for green here. Green with a straight line, looking to either add himself a monastery point or do so whilst also attacking yellow city. Instead, he chooses to meeple a 3-point field. I was going to say 3-point road, but this is not what happens. I'm not sure about the Chileans' priorities here. Now, on some level, it actually makes sense, because you know what? This meeple is more precariously placed than it seems at first sight. With 3 out of 5 vanillas already gone, there are actually not that many tiles that fit here, and this allows Bryan to maybe go over here and create a blocking platform of tempo. As for the farmer, it's just simply to prevent Koki from dropping an easy farmer himself if he were fortunate enough to get his city cap soon. But everything has a price. Whilst Bryan was horsing around a little bit with some blocking attempts, his own meeple is a bit threatened, which is why he chooses to sacrifice a couple of points and tie the fate of this meeple to the highest scoring meeple of yellow, simply to make sure that this guy does not get blocked alone. He's saying, if you're gonna block me, I will make sure to take you down with me. Bryan successfully finishes the city at the top and exposes a blocking platform against this guy. Super critical square over here. He does not draw a tile to capitalize. But still some annoying moves possible. Maybe going over here with a meeple or over here with a meeple. Trying to prevent Koki from getting an easy meeple back, from getting back a farmer. If you go over here, then you add yourself a monastery point, but if you go over here, with the meeple always, this is so unbelievably stingy. What's wrong with placing a meeple there? Because, like, imagine if Koki draws something like a Dorito tile. Then this move just looks cooperative. I know the reason why he didn't place a meeple there, because his intention is either to block this square or to block this square eventually, and he might succeed. But a meeple here serves as insurance against your opponent drawing city tiles in quick succession. Koki now with a monastery dilemma. The move that he really wants to play is to go over here, get 2 meeples back, and protect a lot of these squares, but he's thinking of going over here and protecting this city meeple. To me, the choice between the two moves is clear, and I completely agree with the Japanese player. And I know that many players, even some expert players would have gone over here at the top trying to protect that city. But the thing is, with that particular tile runout, protecting this city like this is simply not good enough, because with only 2 vanilla city tiles, you have only a 75% chance of recovering your meeple. And I say only because this meeple would have already been like 25% lost. So it's not such a big deal. Just losing that extra bit of equity of saving that meeple. And if you don't put the monastery tile over here, then you actually might have this square blocked in the future. One important thing to realize is that this square was not fully safe. I've seen so many expert players lose games by misprioritization, just by going over here, then waiting ages for this city cap, then having their 4 meeples blocked actually on this square, and then just suffering the entire game. So great choice from the Japanese player, but his position is far from great. This meeple could suffer a lot, and even though the Japanese player is ahead on the scoreboard, it's not for long. Eventually, bar a complete fluke from Board Game Arena developers or whoever it is in control of the tile draws, a tile will be placed here eventually. 14 points and 2 meeples back will be added to Bryan's scoreboard. And he will be doing really, really well. Now, Koki is playing with fire a little bit. He does not want to just complete his monastery, which is what I would have done. He wants to wait for a city cap, of which, by the way, there is not such a great quantity. And he wants to try and block the square, but this could backfire so hard. First of all, if Bryan were to get the splitter, it is unlikely, of course, only 1 in 40 chance, but if he were to get the splitter, suddenly he can go over here and try and take over the city. Second, with this tile, green could actually even have gone over here. No, that would have been bad. But he still could have done this and tried to take this city away with a horse tile plus cow tile. Your unlikely farm animal duo. And this would have yielded green some 18 points as well. Instead, green tries to play around this square, as he should. He will now be finishing his city, making this square even more vulnerable. There is only 1 vanilla city cap remaining. Koki will, of course, be completing this block, so that's something nice. This guy is blocked only for 1 point, but this guy over here is scoring 6. And this actually means a lot for this blocked meeple, because if we look at this situation overall, then Koki's scoring 6 plus 2, so this is 8. And this guy's capped at 1. So at the moment, yellow has 7 extra points and some expansion potential for a blocked meeple. And this is barely enough. Okay, this is actually not quite enough, but it is very close to being enough. So Bryan is really thinking about this one. I actually see why he's doing that. Yeah, it's not an obvious move. I mean, I still prefer the move which just jumps to mind, is simply going over here, potentially with a farmer actually, but this is also really, really good. This is actually very smart. I think he recognizes that there's still a few Doritos left and a splitter, and he just does not want for his opponent to recover this meeple with a Dorito. And so he is planning to restrict this square first, and his next order of business is to go over here with something like a umbrella tile, perhaps, and then block those meeples completely. Green gets himself a meeple back. Now Bryan has a couple of interesting moves. He could go over here and drop a farmer, perhaps. This is what jumps to mind. So this sort of diminishes the blocking probabilities a little bit, but not by much. We still have plenty of opportunities. First of all, we can still draw the umbrella tile, which would be devastating for our opponent, as we will be getting 2 points for a road. Yes, because of that, because of 2 points for a road. No, not because of that. In addition to 2 points for a road, we would be getting 4 points for the city, a meeple back, and then, like this, we would be completely blocking this square. But there are some other options. Given the fact that there are only 2 city caps that fit into this square, the one vanilla and one remaining splitter, even with something as simple as the 2 remaining right-handed daggers, we could go over here and limit the square towards a 50-50, towards just this one city cap, and we could easily draw the city cap and win the coin flip, or at the very least keep our opponent waiting for a long enough time for us to benefit from the temporary meeple majority. Koki, with not many options, but I do see one lovely option, which would be going over here for 2 points, indirectly continuing his blocked city, because yes, he finds it. He's now planning to get a couple of Dorito tiles and eat up that piece. He really needs to score as much as possible. Bryan is also getting some quick points. Koki will now probably be getting a meeple back. So, difficult position for the Japanese player. I'm not sure if I mentioned explicitly this city being completed in the center, but in case I did not, y'all must have seen that. Bryan, with a bit of a misplaced move, he adds 2 points in what eventually could become Koki's city, whereas he should have gone over here for a variety of reasons. Maybe he simply didn't see the square at the bottom. So first of all, you don't want to add points to what's going to become your opponent's city, because eventually some sort of cow plus Dorito combination is likely to be drawn. But also you actually want to take out the city at the bottom as a scoring opportunity. You also want to take out this farming platform potentially, so it seems to me that Bryan simply did not notice this move over here. But still, green is playing this one really, really well. And a crucial coin flip for the Chilean player, and it looks like we are headed to an upset. It's a great, great position. Now, there's only one city cap that fits into this square. Koki is looking to react to it somehow, but how exactly? The best he can do is simply wait. Maybe there is one more way to bail out. Of course, he could just draw the one remaining city cap, which is the horizontal splitter that fits here, but another way to bail out is just to draw the extender, save one meeple, and allow Bryan to equalize the other. Note that green has not invaded the field yet, so maybe there is some future potential for yellow to start building around this square and block it. But something that I was going to say for a long time, the reason why red should not have been happy about his position even before green scored all these monastery and city points was the fact that this blocked 2-point meeple does not go well with a big field. Bryan now finishes another city and gets that devastation going that I was talking about earlier. So this meeple blocked, this meeple blocked, this meeple recovered, field attack threatened, 41 extra points on the scoreboard, and all of that because Koki did not want to use a shielded Dorito to recover his meeples. So the Japanese player not sensing the danger earlier on, not adjusting his strategy to the peculiarities of the unseen tile pool, and thus losing 3 meeples already to the big blocker. So Chilean fans should be really, really happy at the moment, but is there any saving grace for the Japanese fans? And I think there is. There are ways to score for sure. There are possible ways to block this guy. We are running relatively short on curves. There are only 2 of those remaining. So it's actually not unreasonable to go here. But this move I like much better. Oh, what a great, great move from the Japanese player. Dropping a farmer, starting to block Bryan's city, pre-building a road which he can only benefit from, and I will explain why this is the case in a second, and invading an important farm. Now, why can only yellow benefit from this road? Well, it's because green doesn't really have a good square to meeple this road. Of course, green could go over here with something like a straight line and meeple this road, but then this would be bringing in Koki's meeple into the field, not something that he wants to be doing. Green, of course, could pre-meeple this road from the other side with something like a horse tile, but then this would be blocking his own field entrance. So at this point, it is actually much more likely that yellow would be going over here, invading the field and meepling the road. But this all changed after this move, as Bryan finally invaded the field, not with a road tile, but a dagger, maybe not the invasion tile that he initially anticipated, but one which was necessary to use over here. Koki still with some chances. He could just leave this road open. It's a great idea. It leaves a lot of volatility on the board. Essentially, both sides are now in a coin flip situation for one of the big scoring tiles, either the horse or the whatchamacallit, or the butterfly. The animal tiles are really key in this game. Now we see that Koki managed to take advantage of his beautifully set up city points. Now let me know in the chat how many of you saw that combo. Then we can see the Bryan's miss here being punished, as these 2 points are now also belonging to yellow, and there are not many options of invading that city. So if Bryan goes over here, which of course he won't, there is now an easy way to block this invasion platform. Bryan decides quite wisely to limit the scoring spot, not allow Koki, or anyone for that matter, an easy road. But what's interesting is that there's still one dagger tile remaining that goes there, which would be a way to score a 4-point city or an 8-point road for the price of 1 meeple. But another reason why this dagger matters so much is the fact that somebody, and by somebody I probably mean the side with 4 meeples just itching to be played, somebody can occupy the 6-point field, which is already a good productive move at the end of the game, and this would create a 50-50 nearly unblockable invasion into the main field through that dagger tile. And this is something that Bryan is also setting up, because he's so much more likely to benefit from it than his opponent. This move also opens another field connection platform, and this is something that Koki is considering. What if he just drops his last farmer, goes over here, connects to the field, wins the field for 12 points, 15 points, and then tries to hold on until the end without meeples? This field plus the monastery, plus the cities, will be scoring more than enough to compensate for the scoreboard, and maybe Bryan does not have a good way to score for his 4 meeples towards the end of the game. The problem with this idea is the fact that there's still some quick point tiles in the deck. There are a few crossroads, there's of course the horse tile, and Koki really wants to keep a meeple in hand in order to take advantage of those quick points. The other problem is that there is in fact a way to deploy 4 meeples productively. There is a 6-point field, there are a couple of really great monastery spots, with 1 monastery tile still remaining. And Koki decides to block the field invasion instead, and now Bryan just goes for it. He takes 4 points for a city, but this creates a huge field for either side to fight for. And now I think Koki is smelling blood. Of course, he's absolutely not the favorite to win this game, but now at the very least, there's a very, very clear path for Koki. Just find a way to invade the field, and then not allow your opponent to do the same. So I wonder if Yellow is just going to panic and go over here and invade. This would be a bit too much, it's too easily blockable. But maybe there are some other more sneaky ways. So we can just go here and set up an invasion platform. No, Koki goes for the straight up invasion through the one and only remaining monastery, and Bryan cannot block. This seems to be way too panicky with no road monasteries, only 1 regular monastery and no vanillas, so many blocking tiles. But I guess the Japanese player might have calculated that there's still a few tiles which disallow a block. So this is one of them. Then what else? There is the butterfly tile, with which Bryan can also not block. And there is the Dorito tile with the road, which also does not allow a block. But then anything else allows a block, so I'm not sure about this Hail Mary, but it appears to be almost working. Now Bryan now needs to think hard here. What does he go? Does he try and block this farmer, or maybe drop another farmer himself? Like, it's not unreasonable to go here, for example, and trying to reconnect to his field himself through another dagger or a Dorito tile. Also note that there are some tiles which block the farm, but allow a reinvasion through other means. So let's say if Bryan were imprudent enough to get the last dagger and put it over here to block this square, it would suddenly allow reinvasion through this square, like around the blocked monastery square. Now, this is often a farming pattern where the farmer is threatening one thing, and then it can get blocked, but the block reopens another opportunity. In any case, the player with the green meeples should use his remaining 55 seconds to calculate whether he needs to go for the farm, which appears to be his idea, or whether he needs to simply outscore his opponents. The field appears to be just a little bit too big to ignore. So let me think about it. So let's say field is 21, which basically equalizes the scoreboard. And then Koki has a ruin plus monastery plus cities for 20-something points. And it's actually not that easy to score, but come on, Koki. Well, if you're gonna go for the field, then clearly the move is over here and try to defend that square. Like, you know that your opponent's gonna block with almost anything. Now just Bryan easily goes over here, cuts off this farmer, And I am pretty sure that somebody in the chat will point out that there is a dagger remaining for this square. Now, this farmer obviously has 2 invasion routes. That's why Bryan is not blocking. But I think as Koki, you should defend. You should defend always. Like, these 2 points do nothing for your winning probability. And they also open a platform for invading this city over here. Bryan now finds another farmer in addition to the block, and he gets the dagger anyway. So he can now go over here and he can win the farm. And he can even meeple the road, actually, which he should. And the score, the final score, is going to be absolutely not safe for work. Glovier is saying that if Koki holds the field tie, he might still hold enough to win. And I think this was also the plan behind this move over here. The problem with that is that 2 meeples are more than enough to outscore him. This board is too wet and there are too many scoring tiles remaining. Like, Bryan is going to draw something. Either a 5-point monastery, either a huge road, which of course at the time of your comment was not that huge. Maybe a city invasion, which was also possible. Like, with any combo, the Chilean player wins somehow. So that's why, like, if you're going for the field, then you probably want to make sure that every move that you play does something for the field. So you go here, and then you hope that you manage to either block or outdraw your opponents. Now, we know that this was not possible, and Koki just concedes. Well, that's unfortunate. It makes sense for him to do, because he did indeed have a 0% chance of winning. But on stream, I wanted to see the point difference. I wanted to see the remaining tiles. I wanted to see Bryan like just score a boatload of points. Wait, and also, how are you going to submit the scores then? Okay, also, actually, I want to ask, is the score difference in the match, is that in the tiebreakers at all? Wasn't it like the 6th tiebreaker or something? I actually want to check that, but do let me know, because I know that my viewers are much more knowledgeable about the intricacies of this tournament format than I am, as much as I endeavor to do my research. But this is also because I'm preoccupied much more about what's happening within each particular game, rather than the tournament structure. Well, anyway, we do congratulate the Chilean player for delivering a bit of an upset, making it much harder for Koki Yamaguchi to qualify for the playoffs, and making it still possible to qualify himself. So let's look at the tournament board and see what could possibly happen. So Koki now is on 1 match, 3 matches lost, surprisingly. 4 games won, 6 games lost. Easton, after losing to yours truly, 2 matches won, 2 matches lost. 4 games won, 5 games lost. StatsMat has not played Meister 3-5 yet. This is going to be our Sunday stream. Now, I should be remaining where I am, so the fight should be for the 2nd and 3rd place. Bryan now finally got himself a tournament point and has improved his tiebreaker by a little bit. So what could this mean? So first of all, he already jumps in 5th position, as Meister has the tiebreaker a little bit worse. And everything appears to be in his hand, because he's playing Meister in his last game. In his last match next week. He just needs to hope that Koki Yamaguchi doesn't win, or doesn't win by much, and I am fully prepared to help him. Not because I want to support Chile so much, although I do, but because I would want to try and win against Koki as well, even though that's not the easiest task. Yeah, so then Bryan has an actual chance to qualify. He would just need to win his next match, and then hope for some other favorable outcomes. I'm not exactly sure what result he should hope for between Meister 3-5 and StatMat. I think he could still qualify with either result, but still everything seems to be largely in the Chilean's hands. Now, Koki takes a hit here, but not by much. If he can win his next match, which I will do my best to prevent, then he can qualify still. But he would probably need to win 2-0, which I will try to prevent even more. So that's the tournament situation. Also wanted to point out something interesting about the way this match unfolded. So first of all, we've had a very open position, and the Chilean won with farmers, I think, managing to outplay his opponent. In the second game, we had a much more closed, blocky position, where the Japanese player managed to outplay the Chilean. And in the third plane, we had a much more open position again, where Bryan again managed to outplay Koki. So quite a clear trend here, and something that will make me think about how I shape boards in the future matches. It's not obvious whether you should always make objectively the best move, although you should strive to do that, but in situation where, especially in opening situations, where it is not necessarily clear which move is best, or maybe there are two moves that you're choosing between, which are fairly close, then it is a viable strategy to simply try and shape the game into a direction that your opponent is least comfortable with. Anyway, before we wrap up, let's just have a look at our future plans. Now, this was the last stream of January, because there's nothing scheduled for January 31st, except for one important piece of content, but that's a stream rather than upload. Yeah, so as a reward for being with me so late, I'm going to tell you that I have finished editing and have already uploaded and scheduled a 2-hour video reviewing the first half of my Mind Sports Olympiad gold medal run. So hopefully you'll have some Carcassonne tomorrow to watch. And on Saturday, we're catching up with more live streams. Of course, Carcassonne Champions League, Hyder Baby versus Kraukli, yes. Game Over versus Ilias Lonimsky, yes. But after that, at 10 p.m. UTC, or around 10 p.m. UTC, I still need to check the exact time of the tournament organizers. We are going to have ourselves the first ever Catan live stream, as I will be commentating on the playoffs of the Mindsports Olympiad Catan event, which is scheduled for Saturday. So be sure to check that out. I know that many of you like Catan. I know that many of you hate Catan as well. I think, yeah, Carcassonne players can be divided in two categories, roughly 50-50. Ones that love Catan and ones that hate Catan. And then, of course, our usual Carcassonne Champions League streams on Sunday. So this is the plan. Make sure to meeple the like button if you liked this stream. And subscribe in case you're here for the first time. But I bet that this late hour is probably for my most experienced viewers. But in any case, in case you're here for the first time, we have a lot of these live streams coming in February. So subscribe not to miss. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you soon.